Hi, I think I'm streaming now. If I really am, you are hearing me talk. You are seeing me here in front of this computer with a screen. And I am here this morning, not entirely awake. Oh, I am, because I hear myself coming from another computer. Okay, turning the volume up there. So if you are watching, I have the chat open, which you can ask questions or make comments over there. What I'm doing today is it's about 10:40 a.m. New York City time on October, I don't know, 15th, something like that. Yes, the 15th. And I'm here to make some videos about something that I completely don't know about, which is HTML and CSS. So I will be learning this material like in my brain like 10 seconds before. Someone was whispering into my ear actually. But I'm going to make those same jokes again when I start actually recording. So this is the live stream where I'm rambling. And then I will actually hit a different button which will record a video. And then those videos will be uploaded and archived for you, for anyone to watch later on at any time. In between those little recordings, I'll stop and take questions and look at the chat or get your feedback where you'll tell me about all the things that I did incorrectly or said incorrectly. And I have a list of the videos that I am thinking about. This is sort of my list. I doubt I'm going to get to all of these in just the next hour or two this morning. But this is my list. But before I start talking about the list of videos, can you hear me okay? Is the audio quality, is it clipping at all? I would like to know. Does that sound okay? Can you see this screen fine? And if I come over here and if I write something, I didn't check the focus before I started. If I write something here, how is the focus and legibility of that? So in the chat, say if you can hear me okay and if the legibility is okay. Okay. Now, so this is what I'm thinking of doing. Now, this is different than, I've been teaching this material in class here at this place where I am, ITP. And I kind of, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what I'm doing. But I think I would actually talk about just HTML as a thing before we look at how you might control or create or mess with HTML from JavaScript and p5.js itself. So I'm going to just talk about HTML as a thing, then look at some basic functions in p5.js that allow you to make HTML elements that sit on the page. You've been doing this all along with the canvas, create canvas, makes a canvas, look at other elements. I'm going to look at then how to style those elements using something called CSS, as well as the style function in p5. Look at making some interactive elements like a button slider or input field, and how to deal with events with those interactive elements. That's probably one video because making the button isn't that interesting unless you can handle the button press. So that's really, this is really one. I mean, it might divide into two parts, like button and then slider in the second one. But then I want to look at why you might make these elements in HTML versus in JavaScript, and how you might talk between those two things with select and select all, parent-child relationships in the DOM. I don't actually know what the DOM is, but I'm going to explain it. So I think like I don't know what it is, but I think maybe like I figured it out just through like osmosis of living in this world. And then I don't know. I started like, then there's other things like drag and drop files and other types of for more advanced scenarios and applications. So what do you guys think about this order? About these topics? Did I miss anything? You have any ideas? Let me know. I'm going to go peek at the chat. And everything okay? Audio is good. Focus is good. Thank you. 16. I've never. This is like the highest ratings. Ratings are off the chart. There's 16 people watching right now, which is great. Okay, so I think I just need to get started then. Oy. Okay. I'm afraid to start, but I have to start. My pants are falling down a little bit, so I'm going to tighten this belt here. Sometimes I trip over this wire, which is the microphone, so let me shove that in here. This is riveting for you to watch, I'm sure. And then, oops, I made that too. Let me move this up a little bit. By the way, this is one of the original processing t-shirts from I don't know how many years ago, but many years ago. Collector's item. at least for me. And I'm tying my shoe. I'm not looking at my phone where I'm getting text messages. I'm coming over here. I'm gonna erase this. I just gotta start, I'm like stalling because I'm like afraid to make these videos. I'm gonna get a fresh, everything's gonna be fine if I get a fresh whiteboard marker. And I'm gonna check the chat one more time. I lost a couple people, got down to 14. And no one said anything like stop or start or whatever. God sounds good, audio's good, God sounds, everything's fine. Focus is close on the second camera. Focus is good. I don't know what that means, but I'm just gonna keep going. Okay, I have to start, so here we go. I'm gonna put this over here, and I'm gonna hit record. And the first video is just about kind of HTML. What is it? Okay, here we go. And, whoops, come on, mouse. Wake up. Hello and good morning. I'm starting this video over again. Okay, here it comes. Hello, so today I'm starting an entirely new section of videos about a topic I really don't know anything about. I have no business making this video, but I'm going to make an attempt, and you, the internet, will, I don't know why I'm pointing in a like aggressive manner. I welcome you with a hug, but you, the internet, will hopefully leave comments and let me know what I've got wrong and what I'm missing here. Because honestly, this is stuff which has been sort of new to me as well. So, and the topic is, it probably says it somewhere on this web page that I'm sitting in, but HTML. HTML, what is that? CSS, what is that? DOM, what is that? How do you write JavaScript to control all this stuff and make magic happen on a web page? So there's and all of this in the context of a JavaScript framework known as p5.js. So in this first video, all I want to talk about is HTML, and I want to open a p5 sketch. If you've been watching the previous videos, we've been writing code in this function, set up and draw, and making things happen on the screen, and making objects, and snow, and particle system, and rainbows, and all sorts of wonderful things. But now I want to take a step, peel back some layers, and say, what's actually happening before the JavaScript even executes? And what's happening is this thing known as HTML. So actually there was you can't even see that, but that's okay. There was a moment in time in a previous video, here I am. This is my list, by the way, and I make a whole bunch of these videos. There was a moment in time, and I gotta close this screen, which has me on it. There was a moment in time in a previous video where I went to that settings icon, and I clicked on this settings icon, and then I clicked on this show sidebar button, and we saw here, look at that. There's this file called index.html. And if you recall, that camera shut off. Okay, stop everybody. Everything's gonna be fine. All right, you know what? I'm gonna start over. No, I'm not gonna start over. You guys just have to watch this in the manner that it is. Ah, crap, no, I'm gonna start over. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna splice these two together. So, I might actually do some editing. I'm gonna stop, and is everything fine? This camera's on. This camera's on. Okay. Okay, back after technical difficulties. If you recall, there were these script tags where I'm referring to sketch.js, which is my JavaScript file. And if I needed to have more JavaScript file, crap, I lost my train of thought. Let me just check the chat. All right, so some people are here giving me smiley faces, which is nice. Okay, back. Here we go, jumping jacks, and I'm back. Okay. Okay, back after a moment of technical difficulties. What I was referring to here is in this HTML file, this gobbledygook, there is this line that refers to the JavaScript file. The JavaScript file being in our world, in the world that we lived in previous to this video, this is all that existed, setup and draw. But the only reason setup runs and draw runs, there's two reasons. One reason is up here, that p5.js is a library that's referred to in a script tag. and sketch.js, which is our code, is referred to in a script tag. So this is actually the file that matters. This HTML file is the file that matters. What goes in that file? How does that file work? And what might you be able to do with that file to make certain things happen? So now let me come back over here. This video is a disaster. And talk about HTML for a second. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a markup language, meaning, I don't know what that means. Somebody write in the comments what that means. But the idea here is that it is based on this concept of a tag. So, if you have some characters in between a less than and a greater than symbol, this is a tag. The HTML tag begins and it ends with a backslash HTML. So I have now created this body. I shouldn't use the word body because that's going to be something more specific in a moment, but I have created this area where I'm going to start to put some content all in between these tags. Now, some things that might exist here is, I don't know what to say, another tag. Maybe a tag known as body. And inside that body, I might put some other things. I might put a tag with a P for paragraph. This is a paragraph. And I might put another tag, like above that, H1, which is a header, like title of page. Then I might put another tag, which is like image source equals apple.jpg. So there are all these things that can go in an HTML page. This is the markup, the source code, the behind the scenes information and structure behind what you will actually see on the page. This renders, that was a bad pen, this renders to, on the page, title of page, this is a paragraph, and then a picture of an apple, assuming I have that file. So the idea here is that you can create content and layout by this sort of system of nested tags. I have an HTML page. In that page, there's a body. In that body, there's, oh, and I wrote something wrong here. That close tag should be a header. There's a header, a paragraph, and an image. So one of the things that can go in here also is a canvas. And P5 inserts the canvas on that page, which the function createCanvas. So there's this kind of question here. It's like, well, what is it? Why am I here? What is going on with my life? And what am I trying to do? If you just want to present some content that you want to type, you have an essay you wrote or a story you wrote, and it has a title and it has some pictures in it, and it's sort of like static, or you might say flat, just sort of existing content, you can put that all into an HTML document, open that HTML content in a browser, and you will see it there. If you want this page to be interactive or dynamic, have behaviors, change over time, change when a user clicks, animate, whatever strange experimental thing you can think of, that's where you need JavaScript. So the purpose of my set of videos here is to look at, hopefully you know a little bit about JavaScript now, and you can program and make these little animations. What's the page behind that sort of what is the page where that JavaScript is acting on? How do you put stuff in the page? How do you put stuff in the JavaScript, and how do those two things talk to each other? Okay, so here's sort of basic idea of HTML. Now let's walk over slowly here over to this computer, and I'm going to do something crazy, which is I'm just going to say, like, never mind you P5 editor and whatever HTML you made for me automatically. I'm going to take all of this out. And I'm going to close this preferences, and I'm going to say, I want to have a body, and I want to have a header. I am making a video, and I want to have a paragraph. This is my essay about how I love to make videos. They are my favorite. I'm just like lost in train of thought about, I'm stream of consciousness, favorite thing to do, rainbow, 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 which is my thing that I always just use rainbows. Okay, so you can see I'm starting to just put content in this HTML page, and I'm going to run it. And look at this. It's like I wrote a program that made this, but I didn't. I just manually added some content to the HTML page, What P5 actually loads in this window, in this like little browser window, is the HTML file. And so you could say like, well, what's in the JavaScript file? Nothing. But I could add create canvas 200 200, and I could add background 0, fill 255 0 0. I'm also now lost in my train of thought of programming. Rectangle 0 0, 100 100 50 50. I've got some JavaScript, I've got some HTML, and now, whoops, now let me run this again or load this page again, and we can see here, where is the canvas? It doesn't exist. So nothing actually happens on the page unless it's included in the HTML file. And when I wiped the HTML file that the editor made for me automatically, I took out all the references to that JavaScript file. So if I want to have both the HTML content and the JavaScript stuff happening at the same time, I need to have both of those things. So but I'm going to do something a little weird. I'm just going to make a new project, and I'm going to look at its HTML file, and I'm going to grab this header area. So I'm going to grab this, close that. So what's missing from this document, HTML body, is a head tag. And a head tag is where I might reference other files like JavaScript files and other things that you might see later on if I ever get to making some videos that make any sense. So I'm going to paste that back in here. You can see in this, you can see now this page both, and I'm going to take out this stuff here, which is some extra stuff. Now this page, and I'm not using these libraries. Well, I'll leave that there. Now you can see this page is referring to the P5 library. Some other libraries that I'll mention in a second are JavaScript code and the HTML stuff that I added. And now if I run this or load this page again, you can see, look at this. We now have other content around the canvas. So this is the first step, right? How do you make content written into the HTML file? How do you use p5.js and JavaScript to make a canvas? How do both those things exist in the same p5.js project? And the next step is, what's the interplay between those two things? What if I want this header text to change when I click the mouse? What if I want the font to change when the rectangle moving across the canvas gets to the other side of the screen? These are the kinds of questions I hope to answer and make more clear in the next set of videos. There's a couple things that I missed here, so that I think are important before I finish. So one thing I want to mention about this, you know what, I could come back to this later, because what I wanted to mention is how this is a tree structure. I said I'll come back to it later, but now that I said it, I have to talk about it. So this is a tree structure, and this is something that's important to think about. The root node of this tree is HTML. Inside of HTML, there's a body, right? Open tag, close tag. Inside of the body, there's a header, a paragraph, and an image. Header, a paragraph, and an image. That paragraph could have things inside the paragraph. As we saw in the HTML file, there was actually a head tag, which included some scripts, JavaScript scripts, and other things. So this is an important also way of thinking. And I think nobody's been watching the ad. No, if you're still watching this video, let me know, because I don't know, it's been going on for a long time. But this, I think, is a clue to this idea of something known as the DOM, Document Object Model. This, I don't actually know what the DOM is, but I think I have an idea just by talking this through. This is a document. These are objects inside the document. The model is this tree structure of how a page is structured. There's an HTML element, an object. Inside of it, there's a body object. Inside of it, there's a H1 object, a paragraph object, an image object. This whole document has a model, a structure for how it's organized of objects. Document object model. And how do you manipulate that document? DOM manipulation means how to use JavaScript to manipulate this on the fly in real time. This is the subject I hope to continue to cover and make more and more examples of. Now, one thing I should admit here is this is like the most pathetic or like tiniest explanation of HTML ever. I looked at a few things. So I'm really hoping to get to more about JavaScript and programming and manipulation in real time. If you're interested in HTML, anyway, anybody who knows something about HTML, write in the comments some links I might include. But I'll try to refer you to some other sources, like what are all the possible tags? How are these tags organized? How are they different? You know, what does it mean to have this source equals apple.jpg? This is an attribute. We'll get to some of these things as I get further along through these videos as well. So for you, if you're kind of following along in the sort of like watch a video, do a quick exercise, what I would say is see if you can make this happen. Now take one of your P5 sketches and add some other stuff around it, around the page. We're going to be able to do a lot more with mixing it soon, but oh, this has only been about 10 minutes, this video. I feel like I've been talking for like 45 minutes. That I think will be a good start. And in the next video, I'm going to look at my list here. The next video, I'm going to look at making DOM elements, making HTML elements on the fly from JavaScript, adding them to the page, just like Create Canvas added one to the page. Okay, I'm going to hit stop on recording and go on to the next video. It wasn't actually 10 minutes, I know now, because I recorded and then I stopped, and then I'm going to have to splice those two together. All right, let me look at the chat. There's some people discussing, 22, I've never had 22 people watch, and there's like this long chat. Okay, awesome, I'm just seeing if anybody has any questions. Yeah, so some of you, it looks like there are maybe some people watching here who might know what have done other web development. So I'm kind of living in this sandboxed place using this editor that's part of the P5 project. P5 is a project started by Lauren McCarthy. It is developed and supported by the Processing Foundation. Lots of other volunteers and folks work on it. It is a helpful beginner platform for making stuff for the web. And that could mean writing JavaScript, animations in Canvas. It could mean, as I'm doing these videos about, DOM manipulation. It's not a full-fledged, I'm so tired. I'm not making any sense. But so this is an editor that's associated with that project. And certainly everything that I'm showing in these videos, you could absolutely do with a different editor, with a different JavaScript framework, with no native JavaScript. All of that's possible. If you have questions about it, add them to the chat, and I'll try to keep taking a peek at it. Okay. Great. Can I post? I don't have a regular schedule of these live broadcasts. I do always archive all of it so you can watch it later. My goal is to have a regular schedule of them and kind of do like a weekly, I don't know, dare I call it like a show, but a weekly sort of like event, possibly twice a week. And stay tuned. This is still an experiment, but I'm hoping to get better at this and have more ideas. Okay. What's the code that creates the canvas on the HTML code? Okay, I will show that to you in the next video, but the way that P5 works is it has a setup and a draw. The setup function makes a canvas, gets added to the page, just appended to the body of the page, and then the draw function there's a whole set there's a library of functions for drawing to that canvas. If you're interested in more about that, go back to my YouTube channel page, and there's a whole set of videos about just working with Canvas that I've already done. Okay, great. So I need a quick drink of water. This water is from yesterday, but I think it's gonna be fine if I suddenly get sick. And I can't get sick from water from yesterday, right? Okay. So I think now I'm going to leave this here. And so in this next video, my goal for the next video is to talk about how to make elements dynamically on the page. So make other DOM elements dynamically, how that's already happening with Create Canvas. And maybe call some basic functions on those elements. I think maybe I'll just use position right now. It's not really ready for style yet. Let me look at the P5 reference. p5.js.org. Reference. You know what? Actually, this is not where I want to go. This is fine. These are all the events. In events, I'm not ready for events yet. Add child, I'm not ready for the position I can use. I'm not going to use attribute, value, show, hide. You know what? I'm going to do position and HTML. And I'll just have the content change when I'm like clicking on the canvas or something like that. Okay, so I think I am ready. The next video. So let me do a save as, and go up a directory, save as HTML, CSS 2. Okay, make sure this still works. There it is. Okay. And here we go. Any last comments? Okay, here I go with the second video, and I'm gonna hit record. Hi again. So now, in this second video about HTML, CSS, and DOM manipulation, I would like to look at making DOM elements, HTML elements, those things that appear between tags. I would like to look at making those things on the fly in your code. So in the previous video, if just to remember, these are some elements I wrote in manually into the HTML file. So in the body of the HTML, I added a h1 tag, that's like a header that appears on the page, and a paragraph tag for like a paragraph of text. So let's look now at the sketch. Interestingly enough, there is a create canvas function. What is create canvas doing? Create canvas, so one of the things that you could add to an HTML page is a canvas. And the canvas would be something that lives inside of canvas tags. So even though in a way you can think of it as I hard-coded the h1 element, the paragraph element, the canvas was not written into the HTML. Instead, in JavaScript, I just said, as soon as the JavaScript executes, make that canvas and add it to the page. And in fact, you can do that with all sorts of other HTML elements as well. For example, create p, hello world. And you know what? Stopping. I realize you know what I really need to do? I don't want to have the same problem I had before. I really need to reset the cameras. These cameras unfortunately turn off after 30 minutes. I should really fix that. But I'm just, and I kind of, what I'm going to do is just restart this video again. Sorry for you guys who are watching this live. You don't have, and that way I now need to erase this and get it back. I'm over here now. Get it back to. Other thing I want to check is just check that I've had this problem where the battery runs out on the microphone. I just want to make sure I have a decent, yeah, this battery is full. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to start this one over again, and I think I should be all set now. Okay. Let me just check the chat. Okay, here we go. And hi, so now I'm in a second video here. I mean, this is probably like my 800th video, but this is the second video in this series about HTML, CSS, the document object model. What is all this stuff? How do you do stuff with it? So in this video, okay, so, ooh, I'm totally in the wrong place. I'm not, okay, I'm gonna start over. It's good because that was terrible. Okay, one more try. Hi, so this is, in this video, I want to look at how you can use JavaScript to create HTML elements, DOM elements, on the fly in code. So what happened in the previous video? If I run this p5.js project, you can see here there's an h1 element, there's a paragraph element, and there's a canvas. Where did those things come from? So in the previous video, I looked at how in the HTML file, you can add things inside body. Like this h1 element gets added and appears on the page. This paragraph element gets added and appears on the page. But there's a canvas on the page. I don't see the canvas here. So how did that canvas get added? The way that canvas got added was in JavaScript. Create canvas 200, 200. So if you want to have things already on the page that you want to sort of like manually set their layout and content, you can put that stuff in the HTML file. If you want your code to generate elements, you can generate those elements from your p5 file. And in this scenario, I'm generating just the canvas. Now, incidentally, you could certainly manually add a canvas as a tag and access it from JavaScript. But this is not something that I'm really doing in these videos. I want to sort of focus on the canvas is kind of, for P5, is kind of like a special case. And create canvas using P5 is kind of a nice way of just quickly getting the canvas onto the page. That aside, what I want to look at is, what if you want your code to make the paragraph? Or what if you want your code to make that header element? And how does that work? So you can see, to make the canvas, I said create canvas. So something that you can do, I guess I'm going to erase this right now. I might regret that later. But something that you can do in P5 is use other create functions to generate other kinds of elements. So we have create canvas. This is one that you know, and it adds a canvas element to, oh boy, I'm in the wrong, that button didn't work. I'm really screwing this up. You guys are probably shouting at me in the chat. I'm in the wrong set. Okay, where did that happen? Hold on, I'm going to look at the video. I'm really screwing this up today. Let me come back over here. Oh, where am I now? The reason why I can't, I'm looking in the wrong place. We can't see you. I know. This button is like acting up today. Okay, don't worry, everybody. Everything's okay. I'm going to figure out where I screwed that up. I'm just over here looking at the video right now. Oh, I've gotten so much better at this, but okay, talking, looking at that, create canvas. Okay. Okay, that's working. Okay, I'm watching myself go over here. So the point where I screwed up. So something that you can do. Okay, so I know where to start again. I'm switching the camera over here. I'm gonna have to edit these. Anybody want to help me edit these? Ugh, I don't believe in editing, but I guess I'm gonna have to today. Okay, so this is going to magically have erased. Okay, so I'm going to start from the list of create functions. Oh, no, stay here. This is working. Okay, and hit record. Magic erased whiteboard because I had a technical difficulty, but now I'm back here. So never mind. I don't need to say that. What I'll do here now is make a list of some of these other create functions. So you know that there is create canvas. This makes a canvas appear on the page. And then there are several other create blank functions available in p5.js to add other kinds of HTML elements. So here are a few. Create p, create div, create button, create image, img. The list goes on and on and on and on. So in the description of this video, when I upload it, I'll add a link to the DOM reference where you can see all of these, the list of all of these functions. So let's now a couple things about this. All of these are going to need some sort of argument that goes in here. And it's going to be different. So what do you need to create a paragraph versus what do you need to create a button? Create sliders, a really interesting one that I would like to get to at some point. But let's start off simply with just create p. And I forgot sort of a crucial detail, but let's start off with create p. And I'll come back to that detail. So right here in setup, after create canvas, I'm going to say create p. This is, what's something besides, I don't know, my favorite color is purple. Sometimes it's pink. Every once in a while it's like orange, but mostly it's purple. I know you guys need to know this about me. Okay, now here we go. And look at this. Look at that. There's another paragraph on the page. I'm maybe a little bit too excited about this. I don't usually drink coffee, and I had some coffee today. Bad idea. So here you can see, here's the header that I put in the HTML, h1 tag. Here's the paragraph that I put in the HTML. here's the canvas that I created with JavaScript, and here's the paragraph that I created with JavaScript. So there's a big question here, which is, why would I do one versus the other? And I think what I can do to answer that question right now is just say, just breathe. Right now it doesn't really matter. Put it one place, put it the other place. Who really cares? You just want to like experiment, play around, get stuff happening on the page. As I show you more and more examples, as we go through more and more scenarios, I think there will, the answers to that question will reveal themselves. The answers will reveal themselves. But in other words, different scenarios, there can be advantages to why you might want to generate some DOM elements on the fly. Maybe you're randomly picking different text. Maybe you're making 1,000 of them, right? Versus whether you want to like set some stuff up in advance. So that's sort of like an important topic. I want to revisit that question over and over again. Right now, I just want to see that both are possible. Okay, so, and we can do some weird things, like I can add function, like I don't have to just do that in setup. I can add in the mouse press function, right? The mouse press function, which fires anytime I click the mouse anywhere on the page, right? Anytime I click, look, I'm getting another paragraph, and I can scroll down, and we can see, and I could start to do things like, my favorite, I could say my favorite number is, and then give a random number between 0 and 10, and I'll give myself a little more room here. Right now I'm going to run this, and you can see click, click, click. I get a different random number. And so this is a reason why I might want to generate those elements in JavaScript, because I want the number to be random, because I want to do it when the user clicks the mouse. So I don't know how many times is the user going to click the mouse. Whereas I'm answering the question now. I know that at the top, I just wanted to say I am making a video. So I can put that in the HTML in advance. There's no reason for me to create that in JavaScript. So this is this balance that we need to strike. So create canvas, create P. There are other ones, create button, create image, create div. My suggestion to you might be just try like adding them in your code, see what happens. But I do want to emphasize something. In this particular sketch, there is an H1 element at the top. I'll say to you, I'm getting exercise here. There is no create H1 function in P5. Now, you could say to yourself, like, well, why not? Isn't that an oversight? Shouldn't there be a create H1? I really think there should be a create H1. And we could have this discussion. But I think the point is P5 includes some create X functions for the sort of most common DOM elements you might want to generate with code. There are a lot of kind of HTML tags. There's list tags and ordered list tags and unordered list tag. It would be unrealistic and would sort of bloat the reference to have a create blank for every single kind of HTML element. So in all other cases, you can always say create element. The create element function allows you to make any DOM element, any HTML element, and the first argument is the tag itself, and the second argument is the content that goes inside that tag. So let's look at adding that right now. Here, if I come back, in setup, I can say create element H1, and then I can say my favorite numbers below. And now, when I run this, you can see I made this header in JavaScript. I made the canvas, then this H1 element, and now every time I click the mouse, I get one of the paragraph elements below. So this is what's possible for you now. You can, this JavaScript code is loaded into this page. It runs as soon as the page loads. The page has some content built into it, and then JavaScript adds some content to it. It adds a canvas, it adds an H1 element, and it adds some paragraphs. So I think I'm going to stop this. And so what I would say to you now is, for your next exercise, take the sketch you made before with a few things in the HTML. Now try adding some HTML elements from P5 itself using these P5 functions. And the next video, I'm going to show you some tricks for how to manipulate those elements, have them change and do some things on the fly. Okay, so I'm going to hit stop now. And stop. Okay, I'm going to thank you guys, if anybody's still here watching this live stream. Thank you guys for, okay, I'm just reading the comments here. You're going to be programming the whole afternoon. Can you fiddle from JS with elements created in HTML? So that's a question. Can you fiddle with JS from elements created in HTML is a question that was just posed in the chat. All things are possible. So there's just one of the wonderful things about working with web development is it's just like you could do anything. One of the trickier things is there's like 10 different ways to do the same thing. So I'm showing you a particular way, which I think is kind of a nice, safe, friendly, easy way to do it, which is that I've got an HTML file and a JavaScript file, and I'm just doing a little bit in each. But you can there's weird ways that you can have JavaScript references in your HTML, and you can have other type. And here I could reference the HTML elements from within the JavaScript. I'm going to get to all that stuff in the videos. So I'm taking like 30 seconds here before I start the next video. If you have any questions, ask. In the next video, I'm going to look at using position, absolute positioning, to move these HTML elements around the page, and using the HTML function to change their interior content. Okay, so I'm going to erase this. And by the way, for those of you who might be new to this live stream, again, I am going to archive all of this on these videos that I'm actually recording this whole thing, and I'm going to take the sections out of them and make them video lesson chunks. They'll be scattered and a little bit insane, but a little bit more organized than this complete raw version. The other thing, if you're interested in future, if you just go to @Schiffman. I'm like plugging my Twitter, which is ridiculous, but I don't mean to do that. But if you want to like find out when I'm going to do more of these, @Schiffman, that's where I usually post. And soon I'm going to be using the new YouTube live streaming, which is always just at like YouTube/Schiffman/live. I'm going to try to get a regular schedule, yada, yada, yada. Okay, remember to reset cameras. Thank you. Where can I get your t-shirt? The processing t-shirts are no longer for sale, but I'm sure we'll have another set of t-shirts soon. Send a tweet to, I'm just like obsessed with just everybody, to processing.org and say, hey, make more t-shirts. We should do that. Okay, reset the cameras. Somebody reminded me that. You were so kind to do that. Okay, and here I am. I am going to do the next video where I'm going to look at acting on these elements, making changes to these elements on the fly, absolute positioning, changing the content. Changing their style is something that I'll do in a separate video, but I will mention it here. Okay. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start this one. I got to hit record over here. Hello, so in this particular video, I now want to look at how can we manipulate, So in the previous video, I looked at how you can use the p5.js create blank functions to create HTML elements on the page. Create an h1 element, create a paragraph, create a paragraph, create a paragraph, each one using dynamic content like a random number. So what I want to look at now is how you can start to manipulate these elements on the fly. And a big topic of that is how to manipulate the style of those elements. Change their font, change their color, highlight them when the mouse is over them. Those pieces, I'm going to sort of like dip a toe into this. I'm going to leave all the style stuff for an entire separate video. And I'm going to look at two pieces of functionality. One is moving their position on the page, and two is changing the content of the element itself. So first, let's just think about positioning on the page for a second. So I have no idea what I'm about to draw. It's going to start at, this is not a good pen. It's going to start as a rectangle. So if this is the page, you can see there was this h1 element, then there was a paragraph element, then there was a canvas, there is a canvas element, another h1, and another paragraph. So one thing you'll notice about HTML is it flows in this very intuitive way like a document. Each thing added to the page sits below the other thing. There's some padding, some margin. What we're looking at is the sort of default styling of the page. So there's really two things. There's like, you can think of layout and styling. And there's a blurry line between those two things. But this is one of the things that you can do with DOM elements, with HTML elements, is something known as absolute positioning. Now, often absolute positioning is like a terrible idea. So you want to be careful here, and I'm going to look at lots of different ways of thinking about the flow of the page later. But more what I want to show you is just a little bit of functionality of how you might act on one of these elements. And the piece of functionality, two pieces of functionality I'm going to show you is the position function and the HTML function. The position function applies absolute positioning to an element, so I could like just stick this element over on top of the canvas or over here. The HTML function deals with the content that's appearing. So I could change the header from saying I am making my favorite numbers to my favorite colors. So these are the two pieces of functionality that I want to look at. But we're missing kind of a crucial detail here. When I say there's a position function and an HTML function, what do I call it on? Well, I want to call it on the object associated with that H1 element, or the object associated with that paragraph element, or the object associated with that canvas. Where is that object in the code? I don't see it. Well, here's a little secret for you. It's not such a secret, but something that I just didn't bother to mention before. The create functions make an object that holds all the information about that element and allows you to execute functions on that element. I'm just not using that object. But I could make a variable called canvas. I could make a variable called h1, and I could say canvas equals create canvas, h1 equals the create element. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying make that canvas and store all the information associated with that canvas in this particular variable. Make that h1 element and store all the information about that element in that h1 variable. And where do you call position? Where do you call HTML? You call it on that object. So these aren't functions just like lying around for you to just say. You've got to say something.position, something.html. Now, honestly, I don't know if I'm doing such a good job with this. Probably the something.style is a function that you ultimately will want to use the most. But again, style, CSS, is a little bit of a bigger topic. We'll get to that later. So let's look at these as two demonstrations, and there's a lot of functions. And a lot that I'm going to look at in videos. There's a lot more that we'll see as I get to future things. So let's start with position. So here I am. I'm going to say canvas.position, and let's just say 0, 0 and see what happens. Like, where is 0, 0 on the page? Look at that. Now this is why absolute positioning can be kind of a bad idea. Like things are now, like the other stuff is not, I've got natural flow. I don't know what that means, but I've got like, not natural, that's a terrible word to use, natural here, but I've got the default flow of the page, right? Of the things just sitting next to each other. And then I'm overriding that with absolute positioning by using the p5 position function to set the canvas exactly there. Now, if the canvas, one thing I could do here, which I think would be interesting, is I could change from background to clear. Clear is a function that instead of drawing a color across the background, clears it and leaves it transparent. I hope this works. And you can see now the canvas is actually sitting there, but all of it is transparent except for the rectangle I drew. So that's sort of interesting to see what kinds of strange experiments you might have if you have an HTML page with a big canvas as like an overlay on top of it. So that's something you can see here. The other thing I might do is set the background to white. And then I might set the, and let's put it somewhere else. Let's put it off to the side at like, let's put it at like 400, 0. And then let's put this h1 element at 400, 100. And you can see here, I'm going to take out the clear, and I'm going to run this again, and we can see here. And now this is sort of hard to see what's going on. So let me actually not make the background white, but just like a kind of nice gray. Boy, I didn't really plan this very well. And you can see like what's going on now. I mean, there's all sorts of craziness. Like this is the stuff that was in the HTML originally. Then I put the canvas over there. Let's move it down on the page. That'll like be a little bit nicer. Like 500 pixels down, and we'll put this at 600 to be in the middle. So you can see like, now I'm getting somewhere. Like this is the default flow of the HTML elements, and then I absolute position this canvas and this other header down there. What happens when I start clicking? Those other paragraphs are getting added without absolute positioning, so they're up there. So you can see there's a lot of possibilities here in how you can start like strangely arranging things on the page by letting things flow in the sort of document way versus absolutely positioning things. Now there's two things that I want to mention here. Way more than two, but two that I started out. Number one is, this is interesting because the canvas is now positioned where? The canvas is positioned at the coordinate 400, 500. That pixel coordinate is the pixel coordinate of the entire page. But remember, the rectangle is at 100, 100. That location is relative to the canvas itself. So as you're moving the canvas around, it still retains its own coordinate system. So now there's two coordinate systems to think about if you're using absolute positioning. The coordinate system of the full page and the coordinate system of the canvas only. Now let's do some things here to, I'm going to leave this off for a second, and I'm going to just reload the page like this. So you can see I put the canvas down there on the bottom right. Let's look at one other piece of functionality, which is the, I kind of lost my steam here a little bit, but look at this HTML function. So what do you do with that function? That function changes the content of an element. So let me come back over here, and I'm going to add here in mouse press. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to start this H1 element with just the text waiting. And now I run it, you can see I've got the HTML element, the one that I created, the canvas down there. Now when I click mouse pressed, I'm going to say h1.html. Now I will show you my favorite number. So when I create the element, I give it default content, or the starting content waiting. When I click the mouse, I change its content to this other text. This is another thing that you can do to manipulate the elements on the fly. So let me run this. You can see it says waiting. As soon as I click the mouse, it changes to now I'll show you my favorite numbers, and those other elements are added as well. So these are two pieces of functionality that you can use. You can use the position function to absolute position elements along the page, kind of regardless of what the sort of what the default flow, document flow of the page is. And you can also use the HTML function to change a piece of content at a given time. Now, there's two more things, I always say two, that I'm thinking of here. One is, what if you wanted to change the content of up there, I am making a video, right? Well, that's not an element that I made in my JavaScript, so I don't have a reference to it, right? That element, if you recall, is just written in to the HTML file itself. So there is a way to do that. I'm leaving that for a later video. Right now, in what you're able to do if you're just following these along exactly is, you're going to want to, the elements that you want to manipulate, make those elements in JavaScript. The elements that you don't need to manipulate, leave those in the HTML. And you're going to see that line between those two things is going to get absolutely erased. But it's sort of worth looking at for, that's sort of a restriction in terms of what I've shown you so far. The other thing that I think is worth noting is that, remember, there's an animation loop going on here for the canvas. For example, if I add var x equals 100, var y equals 100, and then I draw the rectangle at those locations, and I say, x equals x plus random, -5, 5. So now here in the draw loop, you can see, look, there's an animation going on here where that canvas is animating. But it's not just that the canvas is animating. This draw loop is happening over and over and over and over and over again. So let's look at something like kind of strange that I can do. What if I said in here, h1 position x comma y? Now, is that h1 going to appear? Where's that h1 going to appear? Is it going to appear on top of the rectangle? Right, the rectangle is drawn at an xy, and the header h1 thing is now drawn at the xy. They should be on top of each other. No, the answer is not true, because remember, DOM elements, their position is relative to the entire page. Things you're drawing on the canvas are relative to just the canvas itself. So the H1 element will be at 100, 100 relative to the top left corner of the page, the rectangle relative to the top left corner of the canvas. So let me run this again. And you can see, look at that. Weighting is now jiggling. That text is now jiggling up there as well. So in the same way that you apply variables to things that you draw and animate in the canvas, you can apply those variables to things that you might want to move or animate or change on the page. And so with that, I'm going to stop this video now. In the next video, I want to look at events. So binding events, tying events to those DOM elements. I think that's the next thing on my list. Let me look here. Whatever, I'll figure it out when I get to that. I think that's what it is. But for you, if you're looking for an exercise to do right now, right? First you added stuff to the HTML page. Then you made HTML elements in JavaScript. Now see if you can animate those DOM elements, animate your canvas by using position, or change the content. What if you made DOM elements content a random number every frame? Or what if you displayed the XY location of something in your canvas as a text element on the page, a paragraph element? So those are some things you can try. Okay, and stop. I don't need to say and stop. Okay. That's a really, so there's a really good question here, which is, and I meant to mention this, why didn't the H1 element repeat? So that, and I'm glad you asked that question. I really should mention this in the video, but if I were to put a create function in draw, I'm going to essentially make infinite elements on the page. And maybe I'll mention that at the start of the next video that I'm about to record. So I'm taking like a 2-minute break for myself here to drink some water and kind of get my mind settled. If you have questions or corrections or comments, please add them to the chat now. I'm going to check it. You're watching this live about 30 seconds behind me, so I'll check it in about 30 seconds. So first I want to open up my list. CSS and style. So that's interesting. I think perhaps that's probably a good idea. I don't know what to do next. Tell me what you think. So I could just start going straight to events, which I think is sort of like a crucial topic, but it's a little harder to make things happen at the events without doing some basic styling. At the same time, I feel like if I wade into the CSS and styling thing next, you kind of get lost in that. And by the time you get to events, that's kind of more important and interesting. So I kind of want to do events first. Let me know your opinion. Is there any, okay, and I'm gonna, while I'm waiting for you to answer, I'm over here drinking some water. Seeing if anyone's commenting. I don't know if anyone's actually watching. I'm gonna just check. Okay, anybody? CSS. One vote for CSS, small sample size. Okay, let me get myself ready here. Let's do, that's fine, I'll do the style stuff. Anybody can watch this in any order, so maybe I'll do that. Yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going to do the style function with some basic CSS without looking at actual CSS files. I'm going to come back to that later. No, I want to add the CSS file first. I've decided that like doing it directly, I'll do it in a basic way. Well, yes, more will come. I got it. Everything's fine, everybody. Okay. I'm gonna do the style and CSS stuff next. Why are they called cascading? Somebody tell me. Why is it a cascading style sheet? Events first. Oh wait. There's two. Okay, hold on. There's a question here. Now, can you create a canvas with the width of a viewport dynamically? Yes, you can. So you can use window width and window height, as well as there's a p5 function called resize canvas, so you can actually resize the canvas as somebody's changing their browser size. If I'm not wrong, these functions are using the p5 DOM library. Might be useful to mention that, I think. Oh boy, you are absolutely right. I really should have mentioned that. I sort of missed that. I meant to mention that at the start. I guess I will mention that in the next video. How do you do linear interpolation using h1.js? So that question is a little bit off topic. There is a function in P5 called lerp, L-E-R-P. I would suggest you look that up. Maybe I think I have a video somewhere in my archive about interpolation. If I don't, send me a message somewhere else and I'll add it to my list, maybe make one. Events. I'm going to do the events, and then I will get to CSS and style. I think that's going to be worth it. Okay, because that's such a key topic. Okay. And yeah, so I'm changing this. You know what? Maybe I'm going to do events with just create button, and then I'll do CSS and style. Then I'll maybe add a slider, create input, other things. I don't know. There's so many things to do. I'll just sort of see how this goes. I think I'm going to do events. Okay, I'm stalling again because I'm like petrified of doing this particular video. Okay. Okay, here we go. So now I think what I need to do is kind of start over a little bit more simply. I'm going to hit stop here. I'm going to just save as, and I'm going to do events button. And I'm going to, sorry, I'm just eliminating some stuff here to have a simpler example to start from. And so, great. Okay, so now I've got this. So, okay, things that I forgot to mention. All of this comes from using the DOM library. I think that's actually the main thing that there was something else that I felt like I forgot, but okay, here I go. I think I've got another hour in me to do these. So, there we go. And okay. My nose is running. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to get a tissue. Okay. Everybody, everything still, you can hear me, you can see me. I'm checking the comments and closing this down. Okay. Okay, actually this is like a super important video because if I'm not going to talk about callbacks and events, this is like a major thing, a major new thing. This is very exciting. Okay. Hold on. Hi, so this video, if you're just watching these videos like any other, I have something to tell you about this video. This is a crucial video if you're interested in JavaScript programming. Because even though ostensibly the topic is just about how to make a HTML button and how to make something happen on your canvas with that button, there's a much bigger topic at play here. Callbacks, JavaScript event callbacks, functions as callbacks, how to bind a particular set of code to a particular action on the page. This is basically a building block behind how just about everything in JavaScript works. So in this video, even though we have a very small context, I want to add a button to this page. When I click that button, maybe I want the color of that rectangle to change. How that happens, how I'm going to make that happen is like the building block for just about anything you might want to do in the future of your life with programming. But again, sometimes it's good to not do programming and go do other things. So don't get me wrong here. Okay, so let's think about this for a second. I'm going to come over here and use my whiteboard to think about the page for a second. So this is what the page looks like right now. There's an H1 element, a paragraph element, and a canvas. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get a button appearing here. So I want to see a button here. The way that you get a button to appear there is with the p5 function, create button. Now, of course, as with any of the create functions, it's also possible to add a button just in the HTML file itself. And again, there might be good reasons for doing it that way over this way. But just because we're kind of rolling with the punches here and looking at not worrying about those kind of questions too much, I'm going to add the button with the p5.js create button function. So now I want something to happen on the canvas when I click the mouse. Now you know, if you've watched some of the other videos or used p5.js before, you can write a function called mouse pressed, and anything you write into that function will happen when you click the mouse. So in fact, let's make that happen right now. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to say, so what do I need? I want the color, maybe I want the color of the background to change. So I'm going to make a variable called bg for background color. And I'm going to give that variable in setup a value of 200. So now when I run this, you can see it's the same. It's a grayscale color with a value of 200. That's the background. And then I'm going to add this function, mouse pressed. And in mouse pressed, I'm going to change the color to a random grayscale color. Now, you know, for you, when you're doing this, make it RGB, give it 3 random numbers, all sorts of ways you can do it. But I'm just trying to demonstrate something simply. I'm going to click. Every time I click on the canvas, you can see that the background is changing color. By the way, anytime I click over here, or down here, or up here, so you can think of this mouse pressed function as kind of like this global function. That global, it's kind of the right word, it's also kind of the wrong word, but what I mean by that is it's the mouse pressed event for like the entire universe, the universe being this page. What I want to do is I want to create a button, and I'm going to give some text. When I say create button, I'm going to give it some text, and we're going to see, look at that. Now there's a button on the page. What I want to do is when I click on that button, have the background change. Hey, look, it works. I finished. We can end this video now, right? Wrong. The problem is I can also still click here, and I can also still click here and over here. What I want to do is I want to say this mouse pressed function, I want to attach that mouse pressed function somehow to that button. So only this code executes only when the button is executed. What I mean by that, again, over here in terms of this diagram is I want to take this mouse pressed function and I want to make it a callback for that button. Meaning when the button is pressed, the button calls back. I don't know why you're calling back. I like to call forward or whatever, call sideways. It doesn't really matter here, but the point is when you press the button, it calls back to the function and this code executes. Right now, this global function executes anywhere. How do you attach a particular function to a particular object to sort of bind that event of clicking that object to a particular set of code? So before I could do this, I actually want to change something about this example that I think will make this make a little bit more sense as I go forward. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write another function called change color. And I'm going to put this line of code in that function, and then I'm going to call change color in here. So this is ultimately exactly the same thing that I had before. When I click the mouse, call this change color function, which when the change color function is executed, it picks a new color. That new color is the background. So again, same thing. I can click anywhere. I can click on the button. I can click up here. I get a new background color every single time. So what I want to do next is, coming back over here, I'm like doing this really slowly because this is so like important, and maybe I'm doing this too slowly. what I need to do is let's change how I've written this here. Really, what I want to do is I want to take this change color function and attach that to the mouse pressed event for this button. And how do I have a reference to that button? The way I have a reference to that button is by storing the result of create button in a variable. I've lost room here, but I'm taking create button and storing the result of that in this variable button. Now, instead of writing a generic global all universe encompassing mouse pressed function, I am going to call mouse pressed on the button itself. I want to say, call this function mouse pressed on the button. And when I do that, what I'm saying is, when the mouse is pressed on the button, I want something, the thing that I pass into the parentheses here, to happen. When I press the mouse on the button, I want this to happen. When I press the mouse on the button, I want this callback to be executed. What is the callback? Change color. So this is the crazy thing. It's not so crazy really because it's how JavaScript works, but it's a little bit insane that I can have a function named change color. I can reference that function here, telling the button to call this function when you press the mouse. Now this isn't magic. This is the way the p5 library works. And in fact, a kind of crucial piece of information that I have forgotten to mention is this all works because there is the p5.js library, and there is also something called the p5.dom.js library. So the DOM library is what is allowing some of this additional functionality to work. Some of that additional functionality is a mouse-pressed event for every single DOM element. Paragraphs, H1 tags. I'm using button because it's a nice scenario. So let's just get to it, okay? So over here, now what I want to do is I don't want to call change color inside this global mouse pressed anymore. Instead, I want to have a button variable. I want to say button equals create button. And I want to say button mouse pressed change color. And so now, here we are. This is the moment of truth, right? Let's look at this page, right? I could click here on the canvas. Nothing happens. I could click here on this text up here. Nothing happens. But now, if I click on this button, only when I click on the button does the background color change. And that's because I have said this particular function should execute when you press on the button. This is really lovely because it went some video some time ago. I looked at like how do you know where you're clicking on the canvas? We need a big if statement. If you like the mouse where you clicked is like greater than this part and less than this part and greater than this part and less than. You had to do all this detection. Now all of that is handled for you by the browser itself and sort of managed for you by the p5.js library. So. There's so much more to this, and I think that I'm going to get to more and more scenarios as I look at more and more examples. But I think this is kind of a nice place to stop for this particular video. And what I'd say to you for your exercise is add a button. Add more than one button, add 10 buttons, add 2 buttons, and see what you can get. Can you make something change color? Can you make something go faster? What can you change on the page? My camera just shut off, which is good timing because I'm about to stop this video. So in the next video, what I'm going to look at is CSS and styling and how you can style elements. And I think when I do that, it'll sort of come back to more events and how you might change element styles based on certain types of interaction. Okay. I'm gonna now hit stop. Okay, I don't know. I kind of was very long-winded about just a button, but hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so I'm gonna read some of the questions now that are in the chat. Let me just see here. Yeah. Okay. Are all of the create functions part of the DOM library? Yes, the create functions are part of the DOM library. When you press on a button, its background changed. How do you prevent button from getting blue color highlight? What if I want my button not to show the blue color? Yeah, so this is something I noticed is happening. There is a way to fix that. I don't know it off the top of my head. You can actually make certain things non-clickable or non-selectable. Mostly I feel like this problem won't really happen because you're not really I'm kind of clicking all over the page in a weird way to show what's happening. But you know, if your page is sort of designed nicely and the interaction is more seamless, then you can kind of get around that. P5's DOM reference is not located in the main reference. You can find it under the library section. Thank you for mentioning that. That is true. Okay, so please, if you have any comments, if this is making any sense, or these helpful, let me know. Give me some words of encouragement. And I'm going to look at CSS and styling in the next video. Let me open up here. So I got to this. So I need maybe like, I think that I want to do, I think I should definitely get to create slider and create input. Maybe I'll do those next, actually. I'm like trying to avoid, I'm avoiding CSS for some reason. This is my create slider, create input, CSS and style. Parent drag and drop files. Parent child, other events, input change, you know, mouse over, mouse out. Right. So now, so I've really only done 3 videos? HTML basics, create elements. I think I must have done 2. I did 2 videos here. 3 was like position and HTML. Then this is 4, create button and mouse pressed. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Boy, 10 videos. So now I'm just at create slider and create input, I think is what I was going to do next. Anybody have any feedback or questions? I think I'm losing steam a little bit. I wanted to see if I can get, create slider and create input and CSS and style. That will be a good place for me to take a break after that. And maybe this afternoon I can come back and do another stream about these last topics. Okay. Okay. Let me erase this over here. Audio is fine. People are hearing me. Oops, this camera went off. Recycle the cameras. Erasing this. If you've got any feedback or thoughts about my list, or questions, write that in the chat. I need to go eat some lunch soon. It's also very hot in here with these lights. I'm going to open the window for a second. Hopefully that doesn't mess the audio. And drink some water. Yeah, I'm thinking. There's so many topics. I think I'm going to put the slider in. Create input and create slider, I think. So let me, I'm going to do save as slider input. Okay. And one thing I really want to add is just like a little paragraph break here, but maybe I'll do that actually just as like this. It's kind of a hacky solution there, but I like that better. Okay, I'm just going to do that. Okay, nothing else is in the chat. There's 17 of you watching, supposedly. And I'm going to do input and slider in the next video. Okay, which is this video. Okay. Okay. Let me cycle the cameras. And hit record. This video, I want to look at two other DOM elements that you can create and manipulate. So in the previous video, we looked at, I don't like saying we for some reason. In the previous video, I looked at making a button using P5 and handling the mouse pressed event on that button. So when you click the button, something changes in the canvas. What I want to look at in this video is two additional interface elements that you kind of get for free in the browser that you can use to make things happen on the page. There's a siren outside, I open the window, all sorts of things are happening. So, okay, so let's think about what those might be. Can you hear the siren? I don't know if you can. Hopefully they're not coming from me. So this is a button. I want to look also at a text input box, and I want to look at a slider. So how do you make these elements? Again, at some point soon, I want to show you how you can just add these elements directly into the HTML file and access them from P5. But for simplicity now, I'm going to create and add them to the page using P5. So one of the text input is created using create input. It's getting closer, the siren, and I better talk. Maybe it's talking about sliders is somehow like I don't know. Create slider is the next one. I think just go close the window. Okay, that's better. Okay, so what do you need to add to these particular? What do you need to make these elements on the page? So let's do them one at a time. Let's first look at create input. I'm just gonna. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I don't think I need to have so much exposition. I can just move directly into those a little faster. We're gonna lose the comedy routine about the siren, but it was actually distracting me too much. So I'm just gonna start over. Ambulance, yes. That would have been a better joke if I just talked about an ambulance. Okay. Okay, oops, I'm not in the frame. Hi, so I want to talk about two other elements you can add to a web page using p5.js that allow for some interactivity. In the previous video, I looked just at a button and how to attach an event to that button, how to execute some code when the user clicks that button. So there might be some more things that you could do if you could also add a text input field and also a slider, perhaps. So let's start with slider. So of course, as with all these things, you could add these elements by writing in the raw HTML source into the HTML file itself. For simplicity and for kind of going with P5 for right now, I'm going to show you how to do it with the P5 functionality, and I'll come back to the other stuff later in a separate video. So one thing you can say is create slider. I'm like really losing my mind here. So I think sometimes it would be better if I just did this with actual people in the room. But there's no people in the room, just the camera. Earlier there was a siren, there was like an ad, and it was like distracting me, and now I'm just like lost in my own thoughts. Okay. I just completely lost what I was thinking. You guys are probably going to just stop watching because I keep repeating this over and over again, but it's fine. I was doing fine. This is the last. No matter what, I'm recording this video now. It's just I want to open the window again because it's so hot. Okay, opening the window. It's high risk, but it's going to work. Okay, here we go. I'm doing it. Hi, so what I want to look at in this video is two other elements that you can add to a page for additional interactivity. So the previous video, I started talking about this idea of a callback. You have a button and you attach a function to that button And the code is executed only when you click on the button via the mouse pressed event callback. So let's look at two other pieces of two other interactive elements you can add to the page, and what other events might be associated with those elements, and some other things you might be able to do that'll just make things more interesting for you. So hopefully I'm not going to like knock this light over and start a fire, and there was a siren earlier, and the fire department will come, but everything's okay still for right now. Okay, so the two elements are, let's start with a slider. So a slider is something that looks like this, my beautiful drawing of a slider. You can slide this little dot back and forth, and hopefully control something on the page, making something larger, making something smaller, making something more blue, less blue. How does that work? So the p5 function for adding a slider to a page, this is create slider. Now, there's a few things to mention about this. Number one, this is the default HTML slider element. So it's what you get for free in the browser. A slider's just there. If you want to have your own kind of slider that looks custom, if you want to make your slider along a sine wave, there's all sorts of crazy things you can do in Canvas and drawing, and we've sort of seen that. But right now, I'm just going to work with the default slider you get for free. The other thing I want to mention is you can, of course, add the slider by writing the HTML tags into the HTML source itself, and there might be good reasons for doing that. But for simplicity right now, I'm kind of focusing on JavaScript, and I want to just add the slider using create slider, just like I said, create button. Now, what does a slider need? A slider needs three values to start. It needs a minimum. What is the value that the slider should output when you slide all the way to the left? What is the maximum when you slide all the way to the right? And what is what I would say the starting value? So let's say that I want to use the slider to control the size of a circle. And I want the circle size to be between 10 and 100, and I want it to start at 47. So create slider with a minimum, with a maximum, and with a starting value. So let's add that to the page. I'm going to come over here, and we can see I already have a button, and now I'm going to add a slider. Create slider with a minimum, a maximum, and a starting value. So we should see now that there is also a slider on the page. By the way, one thing I did, which is kind of silly, was bothering me that the button was showing up to the right of the canvas. Later, I will show you all sorts of other ways through CSS and styling to control the layout of the page. But right now, as a quick sort of trick, is I just added an empty paragraph between the canvas and the button. And you can see how I did that in the code right here. So I made the canvas, I made an empty paragraph, and then I put the button. You can see the slider is showing up to the right of the button. If I added another empty paragraph, it would show up below. Whether that's a good idea or a bad idea, I'm sure lots of people will tell me that was a terrible idea. But you know what? It works. It's fine. Okay, so now the slider is there. I can move it around. Nothing is happening. But you notice also I could change this. Like if I say the starting value is 5, you can see, look, the slider position started over here. If I say the starting value is 86, the slider position starts over here. So you can control that starting value by changing the number hard-coded in the code. So how do you get the value out of the slider? And the way that you get the value out of the slider is a function called value. So this is another function that we're adding this is another function that I'm telling you about that is part of HTML elements. So far we've only seen position, which absolute positions an element on the page. I've shown you HTML, the HTML function, which changes the content of the element, what's the text in the element. And now you're seeing another one, value, which pulls out the value. Now, value is not necessarily relevant for a lot of other, for all elements, but sort of value is relevant for a slider because you need to know the current value of the slider. So let's say, where might I use this? So first of all, what did I forget? I just made the slider, but if I want to pull the value, if I want to position it, change its content, pull out the value, I need a variable to call that function on. So I need to add a variable slider here. And then I can say slider equals create slider. And now anywhere in the code, I could access its value. So I want to change this to a circle. And you can see there's a circle. And I'm going to say slider.value in here in slider.value. Now, you might ask the question is, don't I want an event? Like I want to have an event fire. I want to handle the event anytime the user moves the slider. And this is something you actually can do. And I'll show that to you hopefully in this video in a little bit later. But I've done a little bit of a trick here. Remember, draw, this animation loop is just cycling over and over again. Draw, 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 loop, loop, loop. So what I can do, instead of handling the event, I can just say while I'm drawing that circle, every time I draw the circle, access this value of the slider for the size of the circle. And you can see here now that I move the slider, you can see the size of that circle is changing. So this is yet another thing you can add to your code. You can have a button. Here now I have a button that handles an event. I have a slider where I'm pulling the value continuously in draw. And so I'm essentially building a little interface to control the canvas. So this is kind of what I think you can start doing now. If you've learned a bit about programming and you're making these little pictures, the animations, what might you get out of building a simple interface, controlling things in the code with a button, controlling things in the code with a slider? And even more so, let's look at one more element, a text input field. And this is where I'm going to get to some other events, which I think are useful to see. I'm erasing all this. So a text input field is a box where a user can type in text, like their name. So you might say like name, colon, an empty field. So how do you get this on the page? Create input. The create input function creates a text input field on the page. So let's add that over here. I'm going to add that under slider. And you know what? I'm going to just be smarter about this and just add a variable. Input equals create input. Now let's put something in here, in the quotes here. Name, type your name. And let's run that and see what happens. Now notice, interestingly enough, I can populate that text input field in advance by passing an argument to the create input function. So whatever, right, and this is sort of a key piece of information here. I'm having trouble with my layout of my window here, but you can see that creating different elements requires different arguments. A button, the text goes inside the button. A slider needs a minimum and maximum starting value. A text input field needs text to start in that input field. If I wanted it to be blank, I could just take this out and start it with an empty string. And you can see that text input field is blank, but I'll give it like, I'm going to write test name, I'll put that, type your name back in here, and you can see there it is. So now, how do I get what the current text is in that box? How do I get that into, how do I access that? Well, guess what? I erased it, but I wrote down here before the value function. The value function pulls out the current value of the slider, the numeric value of where the slider is. The value function pulls out the current value also of the text input box. So this is a sort of important function. If I have an element, a text input field, a slider, and I want to know its current value, this p5 DOM library function value will give me access to that. So I can do something like here in Canvas, there is a text function. I'm going to say text, let's just test that this works. Hello, 10, 20. And I'm going to run this. And you can see there it is. The word hello is on the canvas. But now, what if I were to say instead, input.value? So just like I'm using the slider's value to draw to set the size of a circle, I'm going to use the text inputs value to set text that I'm drawing on the canvas. So look at this. Oh, look at this. It says type your name. And now here, Daniel Schiffman. Wow, this is amazing. Whatever I type. So this is pretty great. So you can dynamically access what's in the box through the value function and control the canvas. Now, I think we should do something different here. So this is great. You can see how all three of these elements work. A button. Click on the button, make an event happen. Click on the slider, use the value of the slider in a variable to control something in the code, type some stuff here, change what appears on this in the canvas. But I want to do something different. What I want to do now is I'm going to go back to this paragraph element, and I'm going to say your name. Now look at this. What I want to see is when I'm typing here, when I hit enter, I want to see that this paragraph changed to my name. Okay, so what I want to do is not just control something in the canvas. I want to control another HTML element from, and I'm kind of gone to past my 10-minute mark here, but maybe you're still watching. I want to control another element from that text input field. So let's think about how that works. So a quick way that I could do it, we've already sort of seen this. So let me just come back here and say name P. And I'm going to say this is name P. And in draw, I could say name p.html input.value. So this is right here, right? This text function draws text to the canvas. This HTML function changes the text of an HTML element to that value. So now if I run this, you can see here that, whatever I type here changes in this element. But I'm actually only using the fact that draw is looping. So actually, I think I'm going to stop this and I'm going to just continue this discussion in the next video, because I think we could look at the difference between how some of these other events are handled. I want to look at a selection of other events. And so I'm going to do that in the next video. If you're watching this video and stopping here right now, what I might suggest that you do is try adding a slider, a bunch of sliders. Try adding a text field. See, can you make this text update in the canvas only when you click like a submit button? So what kind of interplay can you have between buttons, sliders, text fields, and DOM elements? And in the next video, I want to look at other events besides just mouse press that might be associated with these elements. Okay, I'm going to hit stop. Okay, boy, I'm really... Yes, so someone is... Okay, so there's a lot of chat here. I am just joking, I'm getting so many cool ideas. Thank you. Okay, can I control the slider using text.value? Yes, you absolutely can control the slider's position. The value function, if you give it a number, it'll actually set the position of the slider. And I do want to, I'm going to add that to my list here. I want to add zombie slider, so controlling sliders, create slider, create input. Now I want to look at input, change, mouse over, mouse out. So I'm going to look at, in the next video, I want to look at 4, this is my ever-growing list, 4 different events. Input, change, mouse over, mouse out. I think this will be my last video for this morning session. I'm going to take a break and go have some lunch. And then I'm going to come back, because I think it would be better if I was a little fresh for the CSS and style discussion. Okay. Thanks for the feedback. And do I have the energy? I think I'm going to summon the energy and the brain power to try to get through one more video, which I feel like would be good to finish that off. Okay. So let me... I'm out of water, a little bit left. Okay. Let me do save as. And I'm going to call this one other events. And I guess I'll leave this the same. And yeah, and we're going to look at other events. Okay. Okay. This is going to be a good video. Feeling good about it. Any questions? Any comments? I got to cycle the cameras. Going to erase this. This is definitely going to need to be its own playlist here. Okay, checking. Okay. Here we go. Okay, I'm in another video now. This one I'm fresh, like I'm losing steam, but I'm going to make this video somehow, take a break, and if you're watching these in sequence, I'm finally going to get to this discussion that I've been procrastinating and stalling because I'm afraid of it, but I want to talk about CSS, cascading style sheets, the style function in P5, what's the difference between those two things, but that's the next video. Right now I want to look at some more events that you can handle in JavaScript, in the browser page, in P5, besides just mouse pressed. So what's the context of this discussion? Var button equals create button, button dot mouse pressed, and the callback, the name of the callback goes here. So this is the only event that we've looked at. You have this button, you click on the button, and this code, whatever the code inside this function, function do it, and if I reference do it here, doit, I don't know what that means. If I reference the name of the function here, this code is executed when you click. What are some other events that are part of the browser that P5 handles for you? Again, now one thing I should mention is you don't need P5 to do any of this. This is not an invention of P5. I'm using P5 as a library that gives you a set of functionality to access a lot of what's available in native JavaScript, in many other JavaScript frameworks, in jQuery being probably the most well-known and famous one of these frameworks that is incredibly sophisticated, a huge library with tons of event functionality that you can handle. But I'm using the P5 library as an entry point to this much larger topic of JavaScript in the browser, and later in some video try to peel back those layers and compare and contrast with other types of ways of doing the same thing. Breathe. But what are the events that I want to show you in this video? So here are some other ones. Mouse over, mouse out, changed, input. So with any of these four other events, the process is exactly the same. If I want to know when you mouse over the button, I say mouse over and another function to handle that mouse over. Now, the thing about the button, which in some ways it was a great example because it's so sort of obvious what you want to do with the button. Click on it. But all of these events are available for any kind of DOM element that you might create. You can click on a paragraph. You can click on a H1 element. You can click on the canvas. You can mouse over a canvas. You determine when a slider has changed its value. So I'm going to return back to the code and see what happens if I attach some of these other events to other DOM elements. And ultimately, what is it that you probably want to do? You want to, like, when you mouse over an element, you want to highlight it by changing its style. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if there was a video about CSS and style? I guess maybe I'm not doing these in the best order, but you can watch them in whatever order you want. That's kind of the magic here. So let's look at these, and I'll come back to these events in the CSS video. So let's come over here, and let's look at what types of elements are on the page. So right now there's this paragraph element. There's a button, there's a slider, there's a text field. So let's look at a few different kinds of events. I'm going to handle first. Let's look at the paragraph. So what if I were to say name p.mouseover, and what should I do to that paragraph? I'm going to just call a function like over para. Oh boy, I'm terrible with variable names. But now this means that when I mouse over this DOM element, I will, oh boy, darkness is upon me. Oh, it's sunlight. Look, the sun is shining right on me. This is, wow, look at this, is kind of exciting moment. The green screen stuff, I have this window open and sunlight. I need sunlight. We all need sunlight. You should stop programming now and go get some vitamin D. Sorry about this sort of weird shadowing thing that's going on. I'm kind of enjoying it. I'm looking at myself over here. That's why I just keep staring over here. It's very vain of me. Anyway, we had a video, a topic. Sorry. Okay, where am I? Mouse over. When I mouse over this paragraph, this over para function should get executed. So I need to write a function called over. I'm probably standing in front of this right now. Over para. It's a terrible name for a function. So what might I do when I execute that function is I might change name p.html, your mouse is over me. And you know what, let's just go crazy here and let's also do mouse out para, and I could write a function, and let me zoom out here so maybe you can see this better. Out para, name p.html, your mouse is out. You're out. Isn't that like from some, you're in, you're out? It's like my Heidi Klum all of a sudden. This is when someone watch this in the future, the aliens will be watching this video and won't get that cultural reference. I'm not sure I even do. Okay, okay, so what's going on here? Oh my God, I'm losing my mind. Okay, so let's try to get some code here in the same window that you can see. I'm gonna use some line breaks here. I'm gonna bring this down here just so you can, I'm obsessed with getting things laid out nicely. So you can see here, there's a DOM element with two events, a mouse over, a mouse out. Over, I changed the name I changed the text to this. Out, I changed the text to this. So let's zoom in on the browser, and if I mouse, that didn't work. Mouse over, mouse out. Oh, is that the right paragraph? Name, yeah, it is. What am I doing wrong? Somebody help me out here. Name P, your name, wait. Type your name. Oh, you know why it's not working. So this is kind of an important thing. It's good to have these mistakes. My hair is messed up. This is a bit of a crazy video, but if you're watching, I thank you. So it's good to have these mistakes. Like, what's going on here? Why is that not working? Well, you can make events, and those events can happen. But if there's something else in your code that's also happening, it can easily override those events. And I made a sort of classic error of forgetting about this draw loop. So what's in the draw loop? Name p.html. That's happening always. Always, 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 always. So it doesn't matter if this momentary event is executed, instantly as draw is looping, it will override that by changing the text back to the text input. So let me comment this out. And now I can run this again, and we can see my mouse over and mouse out, mouse over, mouse out, mouse over, mouse out. So this is how, these are just more events, right? There's the button event, mouse pressed. There's the mouse over, mouse out event. I could actually attach a mouse click event for when I click on the paragraph. It's a little bit awkward because it's not really like a clickable thing. So that is that's another event that you can look at. For incidentally, you know, I could attach that same event to the canvas. Whoops, right? Any element out para, and then look at this. I could say canvas.mousePressed change color. So all of those same events, right? The thing that happens when I mouse over the paragraph also happens when I mouse over the canvas. The thing that happens when I click on this button also happens now when I click on the canvas, but not when I click over here and not when I click in here. So this is an interesting, you can see these functions can be attached as events to multiple elements. So there's so many possibilities here. Now, I want to look at, this is enough for you to just mess around with now that you have mouse press, mouse over, and mouse out. But I also want to look at these events, which are a little bit strange. The changed event, the input event. So let's think about this. Why do those events exist? And why do you, the person who is watching this video, need those events? What I need now is some lunch, I think. Fading fast. I'm going to make it through this video. Okay. Changed and input. So let's think about the slider. Let's think about the text input box. The input box. I think I'm drawing what I just erased. The slider. How did we use those elements before? There was a canvas, and the canvas had things on it, and there always has been, there will be a draw function. And the draw function is looping over and over forever and ever and ever. So if I use the slider's value, or the input's value in draw, I'm always accessing that value continuously. So if it changes the stuff in draw, we'll use the changed value of the slider. But what if I want an action to only happen when I move the slider? Not when the slider's just sitting there, only when I move it. What if I want an action to happen only when I move the slider and then release the mouse? Or what if I want an action to happen anytime I type in here, or not anytime I type, but when I hit the enter key? That's what changed and input those two events do. I just realized something, that I might be in my code using an older version of the DOM library. So this input, I might have to like pause for a second, but it's fine. I'm going to edit. I'll edit. It'll be fine. Nothing bad will happen. Erase what I just said for a second out of your mind, and let's come back to this question. These are two events. The lingo of these events is a little bit strange and possibly not the most intuitive, but there's two different events. There's anytime it changes, the value of this changes ever so slightly, or there's anytime I finish my action of changing the value. That's the difference between just moving the slider continuously versus moving the slider and releasing the mouse, finishing moving the slider, or anytime I type versus hitting the enter key. So the changed event is for finishing your action. The input event is for any change to the value of that DOM element. So let's come back here and take a look at that. So I've kind of mixed and matched so many things here, but what I want to do here is comment out actually no, I can leave. So I can leave all of this. Sorry. What I want to do, this is still working, but what I want to do now is when I type in my name and I hit enter, I want to see, sorry, it's very hard for you to see that. When I type in my name and when I hit enter, I want to see that content change. So what is the event for that? Input.changed. And now I need a function to handle that. Update text. So what I can do here is I can say function update text and say name p.html input.value. So now the text inside this paragraph, right? This paragraph is name p. So the text inside this paragraph is changing when I mouse over, or mouse out. And now it's also changing if I hit the enter key, right? Or tab actually will trigger this event. So let's see if that works. I'm going to type my name, Daniel. Nobody ever calls me that, but that is my name. And hit enter, and you can see, look at that. Magically, it updates. Now look at this. Those other events are still triggering. And I could type, my Fred Flintstone, right? And you can see Fred Flintstone. So now that's yet another event that you can handle. Let's see. Okay, so I think the input. So this is a good lesson to learn. Actually, the mistakes should just be in these videos. And you know what? I'm going to fix it all on the fly. I'm not even going to edit it. It's going to be fine. I'm at 13 minutes. Nobody's watching anymore. I should say a secret phrase. You could email me or tweet me that message if you're still watching. I don't know what that'd be. Fred Flintstone? I don't know. I was not allowed to watch television as a children. My parents are not watching this video. I would gamble a lot of money that they're not watching. But anyway, I don't know if it made me better or worse or what, but okay. So let's now try to change. Let's now use, instead of the changed event, let's use the input event. Input. Now I think I'm going to get an error. Look at this. Uncaught type error. Undefined is not a function. Now, it's on line 26. Oh my goodness. First of all, I created this crazy circular thing where I have a variable name input and a function name input. That's actually okay. I don't really like it. It kind of makes me want to change this to name input. So at least I don't get confused. Right? Name input, and then I'm going to change here, name input everywhere I put it, so many places. But there was a problem. Here, name input. Let's come back to that problem. Undefined is not a function. We're still at the problem. The reason that that doesn't exist is not because of any other reason other than the input event was something that was recently added to the p5 DOM library. And when I made a p5 default project out of this editor, the updated version of the library wasn't ready. So you know what? I could stop now and re-record this or fix it, and I'm going to kind of dig into the guts of this in a sort of a weird way, but then we're kind of at 15 minutes. You can stop watching this and just go and get the more recent version of the library yourself. But let's look at how I might fix this. So number one is, let's go to the p5.js org website, and I'm going to click on download. Now, what I want to, I'm going to download p5.js complete, and I'm going to look for that file and get the folder. And you can see if you download that, there's a lot of stuff in that folder. This is the most recent version of the p5.js library. This is a minified version of the library, which is kind of an interesting thing. A smaller version. The code is condensed, but it's not as readable. You might want to use that for various reasons. That's another topic another time. What I'm looking for is this, p5.dom.js. I want to get this more recent version of the DOM library. So I'm going to hit Command-C, which I'm copying that file. And I'm going to go back to p5.js, the project, and I'm going to do View, Show Sketch Folder, so that I can look at it in my Finder window. And now I'm in this project, Other Events. There's a Libraries folder, which has those files in it. I want to paste the new version of the library in here. And I want to replace it. Yes, I do. And now I'm going to go back up. I kind of said, now it's telling me, oh my goodness, something horrible has happened. You made some changes to some files. I don't know what's going on. Reload, you will lose any changes. I probably shouldn't have done that. Change the file system while the editor was open. At the same time, I might complain to the editor and say, you know what, I didn't change sketch.js, so you shouldn't really be telling me this. I just changed a library file that I don't even have open, and maybe that's a bug that we can file, that I can remember to file, or somebody watching this video can file in the p5.js editor repository. Click OK. So I'm kind of reloading that, which is fine. And now I'm going to run it again. And I still got undefined is not a function on line 26. Yeah, I think that's right. Let me be a bit more methodical. Let me get the most recent p5.js as well. And let me go back to the sketch folder and in libraries and add that as well. Whoops. I'm going to delete this one, and this is the new one. Let me make sure that wasn't the problem. What am I missing now? Okay, boy, this video is a total failure. I should come back and just re-record it later. It's like 18 minutes long. Maybe somebody in the chat is like looking at me and telling me what I've been. Last line has input.value. Did I miss something? Update text. Okay, let's. Yeah. Oh, is that? That's definitely a problem. Is that the problem? No, but that's not line 26. If I comment this out, name input is not defined. I spelled it wrong somewhere in line 51. Yeah, it's working. All right, so you know what? This is, I'm going to actually, I'm not stopping this. I'm going to fix this in this video. I could get edited later. I'm going to look in the reference. Let's see what happens. And actually what I want to do is go under libraries and p5 DOM. I wonder if that wasn't actually the most recent version. It doesn't make any sense though. Look for events. Input. The input function is called when any user input is detected on an element. The input function is often used to detect keystrokes. So this should be right. What did I wonder if, did I do something wrong? Let's look at this again. Name input, that's the element. Input, update text. Undefined is not a function. Let's just see over para. Let's try that. What's undefined? So hold on, let's actually look in the DOM library. So now I'm going to look in the library to see if this event is in there. October 6th. No. So I didn't actually get the most recent. Why did I not get the most recent version? Let's go to GitHub. P5. So now I'm going to the actual GitHub repository for p5.js. And I'm going to go under lib, add-ons, p5dom.js, October 6th. Yeah, that seems like it's the most recent version. And let's look at the raw source here. Find add event listener change. So how come? I was definitely using this the other day, and I must be missing where the most recent version is. Maybe if I get some sunlight, it'll become clear to me. Maybe somebody not pushed yet. Did I get the right copy there? Yeah. Yes, I could do console. People have all these great pieces of feedback. This has been a complete failure. I don't know whether I will upload this video, although I think I will. But I guess I should, sometimes when you have this kind of problem, you should stop, go take a walk outside, go talk to a friend. I'm sure that I will discover it. Those of you watching this live, waiting with bated breath, I'm sure. It's about 12:40 p.m. Eastern time right now, New York City time. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to try to come back at around 1:30, 1:45, or 2, and hopefully do a few more of these videos. I have appointments starting at 3, and I'll definitely come back, post another link to this live stream to my Twitter account, which is just @Schiffman, SHIFFMAN. It'll be a different link, and I will come back and answer this question. Okay, you need lunch. Thank you guys. Okay, I'm going to stop this video. But now I'm still on the stream. Those of you who are live watching, thank you guys for tolerating this kind of insanity. So so what's going to happen is at some point later tonight, all these videos, they're not really edited versions, but the actual chunks of video that are the specific lessons will get uploaded as separate files. So you'll be able to watch those. Will appear on the YouTube channel. You can just subscribe and you'll get a notice that those appear. And I also will hopefully this afternoon record a few more of them, maybe even sometime tomorrow. I don't really, all I want to do is make these videos, but it's sort of hard often to find the time. Okay, so I'm going to end the stream now. If you have any last comments, I will see you guys later. Okay, goodbye.